Welcome to another episode of the Gull-Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton, Hove Albion and Crawley Town. I'm Matt Polt, and this week I'm joined by Brighton writer Derren Howard, Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford and Sam Morton, who covers both the Seagulls and the Reds. It was a tale of contrasting weekends for our professional sides, as Brighton were beaten 2-1 at Bournemouth in the Premier League, while Crawley recorded their first home League Two win of the season with a 2-0 victory over Cheltenham. This week, we'll look back at Albion's defeat in Dorset, the Reds' excellent win over the Robins, plus we'll bring you all the team news ahead of this weekend's fixtures. You can read all the stories we are talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. And we will start at the Vitality Stadium, where Bournemouth ground out a hard-fought Premier League win against Brighton. The hosts took the lead through a wonderful Alex Scott strike in the first half, but Kaoru Mitoma levelled the score 3 minutes into the second half. But Albion was soon behind again when Antoine Semenyo slotted in for the penalty spot after Evan Nilsson was brought down by Jan-Paul van Hecke. The defeat sees the Seagulls drop to 13th in the table. By all accounts, Derren, it doesn't sound like it was a game for the purists. What do you make of Albion's performance? And from what I've read, it sounds like sloppiness has cost them again.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Matt. It's hard to know really where to start when you're summing this one up. It was one of these games, we spoke about it before on the podcast. We knew it was going to be a tough, intense match, and it comes directly on the back of Brighton's the international break, where Brighton had players, sort of key players like Kaoru Mitoma, Yankuba Minte, Carlos Baliba, Diego Gomez, who wasn't fit enough to play, all coming back from busy long haul trips, and then to throw them in to the Vitality Stadium. It's you never quite know how it's going to work out, but in the very first minute, Jack Hinchelwood, he turned his ankle after sort of tangling with Evan Nilsson, and that sort of set the tone really. Then he had to go off. Yasin Ayari came on about 15 minutes later. Maxime de Kuyper, who's been brilliant for Brighton this season on the left back, he was then shoved into the advertising hoardings by Semenyo, and he then had to go off as well. So had to make two substitutions. And while he was off the pitch, Brighton were down to 10 men. Bournemouth went up the other end of the pitch and scored through Alex Scott. And it was just one of those first halves where the Brighton weren't quite at it. What could go wrong did go wrong, and they reset, and they were much better in the second half. They came at it, looked much more lively. Kaoru Mitoma pulled one back with a header, his first of the season. So hopefully that's a boost for him. But then again, like you say, it was sloppiness again. Lewis Dunk gave the ball away. Jan-Paul van Hecke then dangled a leg, and penalty 2-1 to Bournemouth, and Brighton never really sort of looked like causing enough trouble to then get another equaliser. Bournemouth are very good. They're a tough day's work for any team these days. And one of those really frustrating days, and it was Fabian Hürzeler's 50th match in charge since joining Brighton. And I'd imagine it's not one he would look back on too fondly, unfortunately. But it's a frustrating result.
Yeah, well, speaking of Hürzeler, I have read some talk of the German potentially being under pressure after the defeat of the Cherries. Where has this talk come from, Sam? From my point of view, it seems a little bit silly to even entertain the thought of dismissing him after only 4 games. What's the view of Hürzeler amongst Albion fans? And in a way, do you think he could be a victim of last season's success in the Premier League? Because I don't think many expected us for Albion to finish that high last season.
No, it's a strange one to me. I was discussing this with Derren the other day as well, obviously after the Bournemouth game, and I don't really understand why people would want Hürzeler out, to be honest, especially when you consider the fact that you literally just had a win over Man City just before the international break, and then Man City have come back and obviously thrashed Man United and really kind of shown how brilliant of a team City still are. So for Brighton to secure back-to-back home wins against them as well. They beat them last season. There was another late goal, obviously, on that day. So Hürzeler clearly knows what he's doing to beat the best teams in the league. And I know, obviously, Man City are perhaps not what they once were in the sense of Liverpool and Arsenal seem to be a bit of a step ahead these days. But Man City still have such incredible quality throughout the team. And for Brighton to beat them in the way they did, obviously with a really composed performance. At the end of the day, losing to Bournemouth is no shame, really, at Bournemouth for being one of the form teams in the season, in the league so far this season. We were talking about Semenyo being one of the form players as well, and just how much of a strong and well-coached team they are, Bournemouth. And I know Mark obviously predicted a Bournemouth win before it as well, so it wasn't too much of a shock, in all honesty, for Brighton to go and lose at Bournemouth. So for a few people to be saying this is enough for Hurtsler to lose his job is a bit baffling to me. And it's still so early on in the season. Obviously, Brighton have already suffered with injuries. I know they obviously had some problems in that front last season where a lot of the new signings came in and weren't really able to get settled in because they were obviously picking up knocks. And think of Kadioglu, who we've barely seen in a Brighton shirt yet. So there's still obviously plenty of players to come back, and just hopefully De Kuyper and Hinshelwood are not out for too long after picking up knocks against Bournemouth as well. But I feel there's plenty of reasons still to be optimistic from a Brighton point of view, really. And obviously it was a bit of a rubbish game against Bournemouth where it just didn't go right in any sense, in the injuries or obviously the result. But I still see plenty of reason to believe that Brighton can have a strong season. And obviously a lot will depend on obviously if they can get the strikers firing, because so far they've not been able to do that and they've missed a lot of chances. But yeah, I think there's a few people on kind of social media saying, oh yeah, maybe he's not the right man for the job, but I don't agree at this stage. I think things would have to go drastically wrong for me to say that I think there needs to be a change at the manager.
Off the pitch, Brighton have confirmed the appointment of a new sporting director after the shock departure of David Weir. Weir joined the club as Pathway Development Manager in 2018 and went on to succeed Dan Ashworth as Technical Director in May 2022. It's safe to say not many saw this exit coming, Derren. What did the former Everton and Rangers defender have to say about his departure, and who have they brought in to replace him?
Yeah, he kind of said it was the right time. I don't think it was his decision by any means. It was a decision made by the club, but he accepted it. He sort of said it's the right time for him to go and maybe look for a new challenge. And I don't think he'll be out of work for long. I think there'll be plenty of offers for him. He's very well respected in the game. He did a really solid job at Brighton. As you say, he took over on an interim basis when Dan Ashworth left, and then took the job full time. And the club have always been really complimentary about him. Fabian Herzella has spoke to him in the past how much he appreciates all the work that he does on, in terms of off the pitch, in terms of player transfers and the general running of the club as well. So I think he would go knowing that he's done a really good job. And I did read earlier that perhaps Everton, Rangers and Sheffield United are interested in perhaps seeing if he'd be available for a position there. So I think there will be opportunities for him elsewhere, but it's all part of Brighton's Paul Barber and Tony Bloom, which has been ratified by the board. They've got this 2030 vision where they want to sort of develop the club over the next 5 years. Paul Barber has signed a long-term contract with the club only last summer. And this is part of a reshuffle and a part of an overview of what they want to achieve in the next 5 years. And they believe that Jason Ato is the man that can help them to do that. It sounds quite ruthless, but again, I think David Weir knows, he's been in football long enough to know that these situations can happen. And Ato, he was previously with Norwich. He was one of their talent spotters with Norwich. He then moved to Arsenal and spent more than a decade with the Gunners. And his career really progressed with them under their former director, Adu, who's now at Nottingham Forest. And he just progressed with Arsenal under Adu. And he took over that when Adu left. He took over on an interim basis, but didn't get the job on a permanent level. He spoke to Newcastle about a position there of a similar role, and then moved and now seems to have sealed a move to Brighton. And Brighton are very pleased to have him. He's going to oversee transfers in future. It's going to be part of Brighton's data-driven model, which he's really excited with and familiar with to work with. And it's a significant change. There's a guy called Mike Cave who's also been working behind the scenes. He's just been promoted as well, and he will work alongside Jason Ato, all still while reporting to Paul Barber and Tony Bloom. So yeah, quite a significant change off the pitch, and it's going to shape especially player recruitment over the next 5 years. I'm just doing a piece at the moment for Sussex World, sort of looking at his priorities and, you know, his sort of main priorities over the next few weeks and months. And you're looking at Carlos Balíba's situation with Manchester United. You're looking at new contracts for Jan-Paul van Hecke as well, and any new players that can come in. So he's got a lot. He's got a lot to get his teeth into, but it's a significant change.
Yeah, to say the least. This Saturday sees the Seagulls entertain Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. Spurs under new manager Thomas Frank sit third in the table after 4 games, having won 3 and lost once. They don't seem to be getting easier, these games, do they, Sam? What's the latest injury news for the Brighton camp, and how do you see this one going?
Yeah, really tough game. Spurs have been really strong so far this season. Thomas Frank has come in and really hit the ground running, to be honest. And I'm not surprised. I think he was a great manager at Brentford, and he really got the best out of that team. Obviously, he had some great players, but he really kind of overachieved, I think, at Brentford. And Spurs did a good job to get him in, and he's already proven his worth. I think, obviously, they're really getting the best out of players that perhaps didn't perform last season. And Brighton did actually beat Spurs on both occasions in the league last term, which is the first time they'd ever done that. But it's going to be tough to do the same thing again, I think. But in terms of injury news for Brighton, obviously we've discussed Maxime de Kuyper, who injured his knee after he was shoved into the advertising boards at Bournemouth. He's forced off after 26 minutes, but scans reportedly revealed no serious damage. But he does remain a doubt for Spurs this weekend. Hinchwood, again, obviously went off after a couple of minutes against Bournemouth, and he's set for a period on the sidelines, unfortunately. We understand more details will be given in the press conference on Friday, but he does seem highly unlikely to be ready for this weekend. And we obviously know about Adam Webster. He's going to be out for most of the season with a serious ACL injury. Solly March doesn't look closer to playing. He seems to be far away from being match fit at the moment. Mats FIFA injured his knee against Everton and missed the Man City and Bournemouth matches. He will be assessed closely this week, and Hurst will hope to have him available for Spurs. Diego Gomez, we hope should be available. He was not fit to face Bournemouth after his long haul journey in the international break. But yeah, he should be fit and firing for this one. And Kostulas, again, hasn't featured in Premier League yet this season. He builds up his fitness, and Tottenham does look unlikely at this stage. So time will tell on the injury front, and as I say, it's going to be a tough game either way for Brighton. But they obviously have that recent record against Spurs, which they'll hopefully fall back on. And yeah, I think it should be a good game either way, with two teams that will be desperate for a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Tuesday evening sees the Seagulls venture to Barnsley in the Carabao Cup third round. The Tykes are so far enjoying a storming season in League One. They sit third, having won 5 of their opening 7 games. Despite all this, Derren, I think we do expect Albion to win this one. Do you think he'll make wholesale changes as well, like he did against, was it Oxford, I think, in the previous round?
Yeah, it was against Oxford. They beat them 6-0 in the previous round, quite convincingly, really. And I expect them to do a number of changes again this week for next week as well. So it would be the chance for the likes of Jason Steele, who some say that, you know, there's a good argument that he should be playing in the Premier League at the moment. Bart Verbruggen's been a little bit shaky, his form at the start of the season. But Jason Steele will likely be in goal for that one. And then you'll see perhaps the likes of Oliver Buscagli, Diego Coppola come in for that one as well. And then just sort of players that need some minutes, need some extra fitness. So you could see Matt Swiffer have some time as well as he sort of eases his way back to full fitness. Diego Gomez as well could likely play in midfield. Tommy Watson, Tissimas as well, and Charalampos Kostulas. So the likes of these players who haven't always had the minutes that they want in the Premier League will likely play against Barnsley, and it's a really good chance for progress. You saw how it boosted Brighton's morale in the previous round on the build up to the Manchester City game. So although they are only Carabao Cup matches, or perceived to be lesser at this stage of the competition, but it can really sort of galvanise the club and improve morale at the club as well if they get sort of some convincing performances in there. But it's a long trip for the fans though, so it's going to be another another long midweeker up there. But hopefully they can progress and maybe get the mighty Grimsby in the next round.
I think they'd be one to avoid, wouldn't they, Derren? After their
they
exploits,
probably would, wouldn't they? Yeah, who would want to face Grimsby at the moment?
Take City any day of the week over Grimsby. Best of luck to Brighton this weekend, this coming week. Now we will turn our attention to Crawley Town, who recorded a second successive League Two win and clean sheet at home to Cheltenham on Saturday. Harry McCurdy scored twice in the second half as the Reds recorded their first home league win of the season, as we said at the top of the podcast, with victory over the Robins, dropping them to bottom of the table. We'll probably develop this more in a minute, Mark, but it does sound like Crawley are getting back to their best, doesn't it? Sum that particular Reds performance up for us, please.
Yeah, they were really good. I mean, I should caveat it with Cheltenham are one of the worst teams I've ever seen play for professional football. but you can only beat what's in front of you. They were pretty poor, but Crawley were really good, and probably, I mean, it wouldn't have been a disgrace for Cheltenham if they'd lost 5-6-0. Crawley were really good. I mean, you look at the stats. I mean, Crawley had an XG of 2.17. Still don't fully understand what that means, but it sounded pretty good. 58% possession, 17 total shots, 6 on target, 7 corners, 387 passes. So all the stats sort of show that Crawley, they were the sort of stats Crawley were getting in their promotion winning season. But they were really good. First half there was quite a few chances, but second half, there was a moment where Harry McCurdy had this, I know we're going to get onto him in a minute, but he had this chance, I think it was Dixon, went down the right and crossed it across goal. And I think the keeper might have got the slightest touch on it to put it away from him, but he had the goal glaring at him and the ball just seemed to go between his legs as he went to try and shoot. And you thought, God, is this one of these days where it's not going to go in and they're going to regret not getting 3 points? And I've seen Crawley do that against teams before, even go on to lose when they've been completely on top. But it was great. It was a wonderful goal. Harry McCurdy's first goal, great ball from Dion Pereira, great first touch, and then really good finish. And then it was arguably a soft penalty. Adeyemo showed a brilliant bit of skill, and he went down quite easily. But you've seen those given, and the guy pushed him over when he didn't get the ball. So give a penalty and scored it. But yeah, it was just a really good performance. Solid, and I know we're going to get on to Tuesday night, but there was 2 wins on the trot now, 3 wins on the trot, 4 games unbeaten, and I think it's only 1 defeat in 6 now as well. So you look at it like that, they've got some momentum going after that really difficult start they had, and you sort of hope they don't look back now. People seem to be coming back from injury as well. So really promising stuff from Crawley.
Yeah, sounds like they've really turned the corner. With 4 goals in 8 league games, McCurdy has already scored more goals this campaign than he had in the previous 3 seasons. You spoke to the former Hibs striker post-match, Sam. Sounds like he's quite keen to repay Scott Lindsay's faith in him after a somewhat difficult start to the season, shall we say.
Can I say no swearing at this point as well, Sam, yeah? Like Harry McCurdy in the press conference.
Yeah, there was a funny moment in the interview afterwards when McCurdy let out an F-bomb. It was just like a collective kind of silent sigh of knowing you have to edit the video afterwards, which was quite funny. But yeah, as you point out, that he scored 4 goals in 8 league games, 2 braces, obviously. Latest one coming against Cheltenham. And as you mentioned, there's already more goals this campaign than he had in the previous 3 seasons. And it's no coincidence, therefore, that he's back working with Scott Lindsay, who was in charge of Swindon Town when he scored 23 goals in 42 games. So clearly, Lindsay and McCurdy have a good relationship. He knows how to get the best out of the striker, because he did struggle to rediscover the form in the following 3 years that he wasn't working under Lindsay. But it's worth noting that he did have a health scare whilst at the Scottish Premiership side Hibernian. Thankfully, he had a full recovery and is back to playing his best football at Crawley. And he was asked how Lindsay helped him turn a corner, and he said, He lets me be me, as simple as that sounds. There's not many people that have let me be me in football. He said he's not one of those players that needs 50, 60 touches and tries to do tricks and stuff. He just wants to score goals. I'm lively and just love playing football. I want to score goals and repay him. He's been brilliant for me. I'm glad that he trusted me and brought me back in. I think he knows what I can do at this level, so hopefully I can repay him. And in an interview with BBC Sussex, he also addressed the boos he received from Crawley fans earlier in the season, which were baffling at the time. And it did seem like he was a little bit confused by it as well, to be honest. It obviously happened at the the game against Swansea City in the Carabao Cup, which followed poor league defeats to Grimsby and Newport. McCurdy said he didn't take the negative feedback to heart, but called on fans to support the players through thick and thin. He made quite clear that he's a fan of Chelsea, and he said that he goes to matches home and away, and he's never booed anyone. So I think he was quite upset to get those boos from Crawley fans, and he's just called on fans not to do that in future and to support the team through thick and thin, which is a good message, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he continues to make those boo boys look silly by scoring a hatful of goals this season. Meanwhile, a much-changed red side got there. Is it Virtue or Virtue Trophy, Mark? How do you say it? We probably should have asked you this.
I think it's a good question. I don't know. I've been saying Virtue, so let's go with that.
Yeah, or we could just say the EFL Trophy. Let's start that again.
Let's
Meanwhile, much-changed red side got their EFL Trophy campaign off to a winning start with a 4-2 home success over Aston Villa under-21s on Tuesday evening. Ben Radcliffe bagged a brace, while Kahim Dixon and Ryan Loft also netted, who is becoming a bit of a prolific striker, old Ryan Loft. You were at this one, Mark. Sounds like an excellent Crawley performance. Who stood out for the Reds, and what were the main takeaways from this game?
I'll start with the main takeaways, is the fact that there were 10 changes to the side. The only player that's kept his place was, was selected, was Reece Brown, and he went off after 10 minutes, so it was pretty much a whole new team. They were played, and you wouldn't have noticed any. If you were at Saturday's game and on Tuesday night's game, there was no difference in style. You wouldn't. Everybody knew what their role was. Everybody knew how to play the Scott Lindsay way, as it were. And I think that's what Scott was really pleased with, that it just looked like a normal Crawley Town side. Because you make that many changes, there were players. You had Jude Robertson come on. He just turned 17 the other day. He played a few games in pre-season, scored a couple of goals. But this was his first professional appearance. You had Anthony Papadopoulos came on late on. But Ben Radcliffe, that was his first game of the season. Scott Malone played about 80 minutes, I think it was. He was captain. Joy McKenna played. He hasn't played a lot of minutes. And none of them looked out of place. None of them looked like, oh, God, what do I do? I can't remember what to do kind of thing. They were all, you can tell it's such a well-coached squad. Everybody knows their role when they're picked to play. But Kahim Dixon was outstanding. He was just... And I said to a friend of the pod, Ron Alderman, during the game, I suddenly clicked that Kahim Dixon, because he looked like a cut above all the Aston Villa players. But all the Aston Villa players are pretty much at the same level, or even a higher level, should be, Kahim Dixon at that stage, because Kahim Dixon's Charlton youngster. They're all Premier League youngsters, and you would have thought they should be able to, but he dominated everything. And I think it's just having that experience playing men's football against those academy sides. He looked older, he looked stronger, he looked quicker, he looked more skillful, and you think, God, this boy's going to go far. But he was outstanding. Ben Radcliffe, really good in defence. Like I said, Scott Malone led the team really well. Ryan Loft, ran his socks off, and I didn't see him against Harrogate on his debut, but he looks like he is going to be a handful for a lot of defences. And I mean, like I say, this was an academy team that they were playing effectively under 21s, coming up against someone like Ryan Loft, 6'4", whatever he is, very quick, good with his feet as well, but really good in the air, and he scored a really good header. Adeyemo, not Adeyemo, he didn't play. Harry Forster was really good, where he's another player we haven't seen. He's had a couple of bit of injuries, but just everybody was really impressive. But Jojo Wallacott, if it wasn't for him, we could have probably gone into penalties or even Crawley lose that game in the last 10 minutes. There were 3 or 4 saves in the last 10 minutes when Crawley were 4-2 up that were amazing. They were properly, there was like a couple of one-on-ones, which he spread himself really well. There was a save that I don't know how he made. Ball was played across goal, and the player, Brannigan, I think it was, Aston Villa, they're like he had all the time in the world just to side foot it home, and then suddenly Wallacott appeared from nowhere and saved it. And and there was one he tips over the bar as well, which looked like it was going in the top corner. It was really impressive. And I asked Scott afterwards about Wallacott and the goalkeeper situation, because Crawley haven't been naming a goalkeeper on the bench in league games. And I said, has Jojo been injured and that? He said, no. He said he's just gambling on the keeper not getting injured, because he can only he can name 6 substitutes. You can only use 5 of them, but one of them has to be a homegrown player. and Crawley at the moment haven't got any homegrown players to name on the bench or something like that. So, and he doesn't want to have to lose an outfield player for a goalkeeper when it's less likely that you're going to have to replace the goalkeeper for getting injured. He said he touched wood and he was like, I know that's going to come back to bite me in the arse at some point or whatever. But it was really interesting. But it's reassuring that if for any reason Davis gets called up for an England under-21s or recalled by Liverpool, that Wollacott, he looked so much more comfortable on the ball because that's what Crawley do. They play around the back. And that was his issue last year, Wollacott. His distribution and his when he was all his footwork wasn't quite up to what you'd expect for a Crawley Town team under Scott Lindsay and then Rob Elliott. But now you feel confident. If I was a Crawley fan watching that and thinking, if Davis gets injured, I feel confident Wollacott. I mean, I'll touch wood and that will come back to bite me on the backside now I've said that. But he was really, really impressive. And some of those saves at the end, I think Lindsay called them phenomenal or incredible saves. Yeah, so no, but just a really good performance, and carries on that momentum of winning, which is what Lindsay wants.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned earlier, victory over Villa made it 3 consecutive wins and 4 unbeaten for the Reds. But in his post-match interview, he said Scott Lindsay said the win was not the most important thing. What was the most important thing for Lindsay, Sam, and what else did he have to say about Tuesday night's display?
He said the most important thing was the performance. He did say the win was second place to that. He said he wanted the team to look like Crawley, basically look like us, and we saw that. And the second most important thing was to win because of 2 reasons. The main thing being that we want to breed a winning culture. He thinks that's important. It goes throughout the building, not just the boys who play competitively 2 games on a Saturday, but also the boys who play in cup matches. We have to have that winning mentality. I think that's vital that we keep that going. And the second reason is because we want to remain in this competition. We've got 31 professional footballers here at the club, so it's important that we continue through this tournament as it gives us plenty of games to play. But he said the winning mentality is massive. 4 now unbeaten, so he's really pleased with that. And Crawley will obviously be looking to extend that unbeaten run on the road in Notts County.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, Sam, this Saturday sees the Reds travel to Notts County in League 2, who sit slap bang in mid-table, occupying 12th place after 8 games. I think we've always said it's a difficult place to go in Meadow Lane, Mark. How do you see this one going, and what's the latest injury news from the Crawley camp at present?
Yeah, it is always a difficult place to go, certainly for Crawley. I remember in the promotion winning season, they went there twice, once in the FA Cup and one in the league, and they lost both games. And they've actually only beaten Notts County 4 times in 17 attempts. So generally, but what they did the last time they played them, they beat them 2-1 at the Broadfield Stadium. And it was one of my favourite nights at Crawley because Adi Yemo came on and scored the winner. Just remembering the noise and the atmosphere, because Notts County brought loads of fans that night. It was a really good atmosphere. But yeah, Notts County, they sort of middling at the moment. But they did lose to Gillingham, but Gillingham are on fire at the moment, aren't they? So they did lose to them at the weekend, but the previous 2 games they've won. So it is going to be a really difficult place. But with Crawley, the way they're playing, you feel they're going to, they should go up there and get something out of this game, whether it be a win or a draw. Cheltenham came to Crawley and sat back from the off. And Lindsay said afterwards that they found it difficult because most teams now do the high press. If the ball goes back to the keeper, the forward is sprinting towards, and Crawley do it to other teams. But Cheltenham didn't do that. So I think sometimes, like Harvey Davis and the defence were a little bit confused because nobody was putting them under any kind of pressure. And Scott said they found that a little bit difficult at first because normally if you've got the high press, you can go round those players, whereas they couldn't go round those players on Saturday. And that's why it took them such a long time to break them down on Saturday. But I think with a team like Notts County are going to be putting Crawley under pressure, and I think that will suit Crawley more. So hopefully that will play into Crawley's hands and they can get something up there. Injury-wise, there was we know Jay Williams is out, but we saw him last night hobbling along on a crutch and in a huge brace on it. He had, I think he had an operation on his knee. He's going to be out for another 8 or 10 weeks, so we're not going to see Jay Williams for a while. Danny Cashman was there last night talking to Ricky McFarlane, the physio, on the sidelines and that. So I think he's still out. But generally, Reece Brown, who went off injured after 10 minutes last night, Lindsay's got no concerns about him because it was a migraine, apparently, is why he had to go off. Right. So Reece Brown hopefully will be fit. From last week, I imagine Ryan Loft and Kaheen Dixon will come back into the starting lineup because they played so well last night and they played so well leading up to the international break and the suspension, respectively. So I think, Lindsay's getting more and more players back. So it's just Cashman and Williams are the obvious, will be the ones that will definitely be missing, I think. But the rest of it, he said he hasn't got any selection problems. He was asked that last night. Does this result and performance give you selection headache? He said, absolutely not. I know my team for Saturday. I knew my team for this Tuesday. And barring any injuries, nothing will change kind of thing. So you'd imagine he'll stick mainly to the side that beat Cheltenham last week. But with Loft and Dixon possibly the ones coming in.
Interesting stuff. Well, best of luck to Crawley at Notts County this weekend. And as ever, we will finish with score predictions. We will start with Brighton v Spurs in the Premier League on Saturday. Derren, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Thomas Frank's Tottenham are a sort of different proposition these days. Their win against Villarreal was their fourth clean sheet in their first 5 matches. So it's going to be tough to break them down. I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. What do you reckon, Sam? I mean, I watched a bit of that Spurs Villarreal game last night and they weren't electric, to say the least.
No, it's a really tough one to call, isn't it? I think a draw is a safe one. I'll go for a couple more goals. I'll say 2-2.
Mark, what do you reckon for this Spurs Brighton? And would draw ease the pressure on, or so-called pressure on Hertzler a bit, do you think?
I think so. I think it would. But because my wife and son both support Spurs, I'm going for a Spurs win. And I think they'll keep another clean sheet. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Tottenham win. And I think they keep clean. I listened to Jamie O'Hara saying that he thinks Van der Ven and Romero are the best centre back pairing in the world at the moment. I don't think they're quite that, but I think they are. They're certainly arguably the best in the Premier League, and obviously the stats prove that at the moment, along with Saliba and Arsenal. So I think I can see another clean sheet. I think Brighton just don't seem to be on it at the moment. So Spurs to win.
Interesting stuff. Brighton Barnsley then in the Carabao Cup. I think we're all predicting a win there, Derren. I'll be surprised if it was anything else.
Yeah, I should think so. I'm going to go with a 2-0. 2-0. I don't think quite the heights of the Oxford game, but they should have enough to progress. Yeah,
hard to argue with that, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it should be a pretty comfortable win for Brighton. I'd say, 3-0.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, I can't really disagree with that.
No, I'll go 3-1. I'll say they concede a goal, but I can't see them lead. I mean, it's a good opportunity for them to get a win and have an interest in a competition, isn't it? And a good route to Europe if it's not going to come any other way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Notts County v Crawley in League 2. Go back to you, Mark. Crawley will be buoyant, to say the least.
I think they will, and I think they will win. I think they'll go there with the confidence. They'll hit Notts County early, and I think they'll win 2-1. They go 2-0 up. And then in the second half, we'll be a little bit back to the wall, Notts County going for them, and they'll get an early goal and it will be tense. So that's what I'm going for.
Sounds exactly like the Harrogate game. Sam, what do you reckon?
Crawley on a good run of form. I've backed them to continue it. 2-1 win.
We're going for a clean sweep of wins, Derren.
I am, yes. Yeah, I think Scott Lindsay's got them firing again. So I'm going to go... I'll probably agree with Mark, I think. A 2-1, I think, for that one.
Excellent stuff. Well, if Scott Malone starts for Crawley, it's a guaranteed 3 points anyway, so fingers crossed he starts. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much for all your contribution this week, chaps. Brilliant as ever. And don't forget, you can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and we will see you all next week.